Every soldier in World War II carried one, in their pockets, in their rations, a small, hard-shelled candy that refused to melt. Even in the jungle heat of the Pacific, even in the deserts of North Africa. It seems so simple now. A little chocolate button, dropped into a paper bag, bought without a second thought. But this candy has a secret history. One involving a forgotten war in Spain, a desperate scramble for ration chocolate, a partnership built entirely out of necessity, and a betrayal so cold that one man's name was nearly erased from history completely. Even though his initial is still stamped on every single piece, to this very day, this is the real story of how two letters, M and M, became one of the most recognized candies on the planet, born not in a kitchen or a boardroom, but in the middle of war. Our story begins not in a factory, but on a battlefield. In the late 1930s, a man named Forrest Mars Sr. was traveling through Spain. The grandson of a candy maker, raised on his father's growing empire of Snickers and Milky Way and Mars bars. He had a sharp eye for spotting opportunity. And Spain, at that moment, was tearing itself apart in a brutal civil war. There, among the soldiers fighting on the front lines, Forrest noticed something strange. They were eating small, chocolate pellets, coated in a hard, sugary shell. He watched, completely fascinated, as the candy sat in their bare hands under the blazing Spanish sun for minutes at a time, and simply did not melt. For a chocolate man, like Forrest Mars, this was nothing short of revolutionary. Because in America, in the 1930s, chocolate sales would collapse every single summer. No air conditioning, no refrigerated trucks, just melted ruined stock, sitting on shelves. But here, in a war zone, soldiers were eating chocolate that survived the heat. He knew, in that instant, he had to bring this idea home. There was just one enormous problem. Chocolate was rationed, tightly controlled, and getting harder to source. So Forrest Mars went looking for a partner, someone with guaranteed access to a steady supply. He found Bruce Murrie, the son of William Murrie, president of the Hershey Chocolate Corporation, the largest, most powerful chocolate company in the entire United States. Forrest made him an offer, an 80-20 partnership. Mars would keep 80%, Murrie would get the remaining 20%. In exchange, Hershey would guarantee the chocolate supply that Mars desperately needed. Murrie agreed, and together, in 1941, they patented the process and began production in a factory in Newark, New Jersey. They named their creation using both of their initials, M for Mars and M for Murrie, M and M, a simple name for a candy that within a single decade would become one of the most recognized products on planet Earth. Here is the part most people never learn. For years, you could not buy M&Ms in a single shop anywhere in America, because the moment the United States entered the war, the military bought every single one. Every batch, every tube, every piece went straight to soldiers. M&Ms were folded into something called C rations, standard field kits designed to keep troops fed and functional for up to 3,600 calories a day, packed into cardboard tubes alongside canned meat and freeze-dried coffee, carried across the burning sands of North Africa, carried through the dense, suffocating jungles of the Pacific. They didn't melt in a soldier's trouser pocket. They didn't turn to paste inside a hot metal canteen. For men far from home, fighting in conditions most of us will never have to imagine, a small piece of chocolate that stayed whole, that stayed edible, meant far more than just a sweet treat. When those soldiers finally came home from the war, they remembered, and they wanted more. Now, here comes the betrayal. Forrest Mars was not an easy man. Those who worked for him described someone blunt, demanding, a man who ruled almost entirely through fear and the occasional volcanic screaming tantrum. And once the war ended and M&Ms became wildly, enormously profitable, he decided that he simply did not need a partner anymore. According to Hershey's own company archives, Mars, quote, maneuvered Bruce Murrie clean out of his own company. He bought out Murrie's 20% stake for a single payment of $1 million, a huge sum at the time. But here's the cruel twist. Because Murrie had helped a rival company succeed, Hershey refused to take him back. He had betrayed the family business to help a competitor, so Bruce Murrie was left with nowhere to go. His name simply vanished from the company records, from the history books, from public memory, almost entirely. Even though his very own initial, that lowercase letter M, stamped onto every single candy, is still there to this day. The M that almost nobody ever knew was his. With Murrie gone, Mars took full, complete control. And in 1954, the company launched what would become one of the most famous slogans in advertising history. Melts in your mouth, not in your hand. It was simple. It was true. And it perfectly captured the exact same quality that had made M&Ms so valuable to soldiers just a decade earlier. The same hard shell that protected chocolate from the desert sun was now protecting it from a child's sweaty palm on a hot summer afternoon. That slogan stuck around for nearly 70 years, one of the longest-running taglines in American business history. But the candy itself kept evolving too. In 1976, public fears over a food dye, called red dye number 2, linked in some studies to cancer, forced Mars to pull every single red candy from production. Even though that exact dye was never actually used in M&Ms, red M&Ms vanished for 11 long years, replaced by orange. They didn't return to the bag until 1987. But the story does not end on Earth. In 1981, NASA was preparing for the very first space shuttle launch, Columbia, and the crew made an unusual request. They wanted M&Ms on board, the exact same hard shell that once protected chocolate from the brutal heat of war, now had a brand new job: stopping chocolate from crumbling apart and floating freely through a weightless cabin. M&Ms became the very first candy ever sent into space. Decades later, in 2011, to commemorate the final shuttle launch, Mars even created a special edition, decorated with the shuttle Atlantis and the words 3, 2, 1, lift off. Today, that same Newark factory, where it all began, produces an almost unbelievable 2 billion M&Ms every single 8 hours. From a battlefield in Spain, to soldiers' pockets in the Pacific, to orbit around our entire planet, the same simple idea survived every single step. Sometimes the smallest inventions travel the very furthest. So next time you tear open a small bag of M&Ms, you'll know. You're not just eating candy, you're tasting a piece of history. Born in a war zone in Spain, forged through wartime rationing, built on a partnership and a betrayal, and launched, quite literally, into space. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe. We dig up stories like this every single week. The hidden history behind the things you use every single day. I'll see you in the next one.